Hi, everybody. This is Peter Schiff. This is Monday, May 4th, 2009. Anyway, I just got back from doing Kudlow over on CNBC. And, it's amazing how quickly everybody on that show turns bullish on the U.S. economy simply because the stock market's going up. And sure, U.S. stock market's up. It had a big day today. We're up over 200 points. But stocks are rising all around the world. Stock prices are going up everywhere on the planet. In fact, they're going up a lot more slowly in the United States than they are anywhere else in the world. But you don't want to confuse rising stock prices with improving economic fundamentals, certainly not in the United States. Stocks are not going up because the economy is improving. Far from it. The economy is getting worse. And what the government is doing is going to make it a lot worse. But what's happening is people around the world are discovering the risk of holding cash. And so what's really happening is not a vote of confidence in the markets or in the U.S. economy, but a vote of no confidence in cash or the dollar. Look at what's happening to the value of the dollar. It's continuing to drop. It dropped again today. The dollar index today traded below 84 handle. I think we're still headed lower from here. Bond prices, while they weren't down a lot today, they had been going down all last week. Bond yields continue to rise. Bond prices continue to fall. And as I pointed out on the Kudlow show, I think that strengthening stock prices is actually a negative for the short run for the U.S. economy, or at least our bubble economy, because to the extent that investors around the world were afraid of being in stocks and falsely believed that there was going to be a global depression, this created an artificial demand for treasuries and dollars. That's what kept our economy from collapsing further, because it put a floor on prices. It put a ceiling, rather. It put a ceiling on prices and interest rates. And so because the world was rushing to the dollar and rushing to our bond market, we were spared the full extent of the fallout of the bursting of this bubble. But as the world sees that the coast is clear, and as they want to invest more in higher yielding assets around the world, and if you look at the way a lot of these foreign stocks are moving, many of the stocks that we're involved in, these stocks are moving up 5 and 10% each day. People are going to want to get a piece of that. People are going to not want to cower in cash. They're going to want to venture into higher yielding assets. And again, it's amazing that when people are afraid, they want to take a refuge in the dollar, because the dollar is the last place you'd want to hide, because the dollar in itself carries a tremendous amount of risk. But to the extent that investors become less risk adverse, and that's interpreted to mean wanting to buy higher yielding assets, then they don't want to buy our treasuries. They don't want to buy our dollar, and that's going to be very problematic when all of a sudden we have much higher interest rates, which is a negative for the housing market, and we have higher consumer prices. And it was amazing, too, how many people on this Kudlow show were quick to try to call a bottom in the housing market, that housing is bottom. How can anybody think that housing is bottom, or that the economy has turned around, that we've seen the worst of it? There is just no way that that's going to happen, and you certainly don't want to jump to that false conclusion based on nominal stock market appreciation. And also, we have no idea if we've seen the nominal lows. I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. stock market made a new low, even in nominal terms. Now, maybe we won't make a new low. I don't know that for sure. But if we don't make a new low, it's only because inflation is so dramatic that the dollar loses much more value than stocks. And so therefore, expressed in dollars, stocks will rise. But expressed in other assets, other currencies, or in gold, stocks are going to fall. And I think they're going to fall dramatically from here over the next 5 years. There's no way around that. Now, also, moving away from the markets, look at what's happening in politics. Look at Barack Obama now is really waging war on American corporations, on American citizens. First, what he's trying to do is he's trying to track down on these corporations who are not paying enough income taxes on their foreign profits, and he wants to tax them. He wants to stop that from happening, all under the guise of creating more jobs in the United States. He's blaming these foreign corporations on shifting jobs abroad in order to save on their taxes. Well, that's not the case. Anything that requires American companies to pay more taxes makes them less competitive. And ultimately, one of the reasons that a lot of American companies are still thriving or still in business is because they've been able to shift a lot of their operations offshore. Without the ability to do that in a tax-efficient manner, these companies might go away completely. They might be bought out by foreign companies. And in the end, by trying to tax American businesses higher on their foreign earnings, they might end up destroying quality jobs back here in the United States that a lot of that offshore activity ends up generating and perpetuating certain American jobs. And if you make American companies less competitive, they'll employ fewer people right here in America. So this is not going to work the way Barack Obama claims. Anything that takes money away from the private sector and puts it in the government sector is detrimental to our economy. And it's not an economic stimulus, it's an economic suppressant. But one thing in particular that I'm watching and is very, very concerning to me has to do with individuals. Part of this new plan by the government or President Obama to go after tax cheats or offshore tax havens or in these shelters is the government is now changing, or Barack Obama is proposing to change what has been law in this country for hundreds of years with respect to burden of proof. What Barack Obama wants to do is, up until now, or the way the current law is, if the government wants to claim that a foreign bank account, a numbered foreign bank account, belongs to a particular American citizen, the IRS needs to prove it. The government needs to have evidence linking an individual to an account. They have to have records of bank wires, of deposits, maybe some trips to that particular jurisdiction or that bank, maybe eyewitnesses who worked on the account, who saw a particular individual making deposits into the account or helping set up the account. There had to be a chain of evidence, right? The government had to prove it. What the government is proposing now is that changes. They want to shift the burden of proof to the taxpayer. So if Barack Obama gets his way, and let's hope that he doesn't, it would be amazing if he did, is that what the government will simply be able to do is allege. They'll be able to state, we think that this bank account belongs to a taxpayer, and we're going to fine him for having an undisclosed foreign bank account, and we're going to tax him on the income of this account. And now it's up to the individual to prove that that's not his account. Well, that's an impossible thing to do. You can't prove a negative. You can only prove a positive. So that means basically the government can just claim anybody owns a foreign account and tax them on it, and it's impossible to prove that it's not your account. You see, it's like if the government asked me to prove that I'd never eaten a ham sandwich. Well, how can I prove that? How can I prove I've never eaten a ham sandwich in my entire life, even if I've never had one? Now, if the government had to prove that I ate a ham sandwich, well, they can do that. They can find a witness that saw me eat a ham sandwich. They can get a guy from a delicatessen. So yes, I served him ham. I watched him eat that ham sandwich. You can prove a positive, but there's no way that I can prove that I've never done something. So the government can try to submit evidence that I have a foreign bank account, but I can't submit any evidence that that's not my account. And what's very troubling, even if they don't pass it, this is the mindset of our current administration. Theoretically, Barack Obama was a law professor. He studied law, yet he thinks that the government should do this. He thinks that the government has the ability to do this, that American citizens should be innocent, guilty rather, until they can prove their innocence, and the government should be able to allege whatever it wants and take whatever it wants from American citizens and force American citizens into an impossible burden of proof. Anyway, we'll see how this story drags on. I haven't heard much of it in the mainstream media. I just happened to read about it in one of the Bloomberg articles that was reporting on it. And we talked to the reporter, and he was going to be interested in it. Also, you know, if you look, I had an op-ed that was in the New York Post, ran on Sunday's Post, I think in the business section, about what Barack Obama was doing with the Chrysler bailout, which of course, or the Chrysler bankruptcy, which is going pretty much the way my editorial forecasted it would, and it is basically setting the stage for another bankruptcy for General Motors that'll be just as harmful for the free market. And you know, once creditors around the world start to see how their interests are really looked after in the United States, there isn't a person who's going to want to loan money to an American corporation, particularly an American corporation that has a large labor union, because they're going to know if there's ever a bankruptcy, it's the labor union is going to be holding all the cards, and they're going to be out of luck. Anyway, thanks a lot. I'll be back again next time.